hit a huge milestone last week. Somehow we hit 100 subs. Me and Greg still don't know why you guys rock with us, but we're thankful that you do. Our new goal is 125 by the end of the year. Hopefully we can hit it, but if not, it's all gravy from here. Just want to give everybody a huge thank you once again. Just like the rest of the NFL, our team's been hit with COVID. Greg's out this week. He caught the virus. Hopefully everybody stayed safe this weekend with their family. I'm here with the scuff set up. You get to listen to the monotone medley once again. I don't know how Batman handles on without Robin, but we're going to try it this week. So let's get right into it. At 40, we have Cam Akers coming off a 9-carry, 84-yard game with 1 touchdown. He's been playing the fewest amount of snaps, but he just looks like the best runner. It's still a committee, so I would stay away from it unless you're desperate. But the Cardinals matchup, one that could be worse. I think Cam Akers has the upside to score some points, but it really all depends on your situation. At 39, we got Lev Bell coming off a 5-carry, 22-yard game. He had 2 catches on 2 targets, but he's only playing 30% of the snaps. He had a better yards per carry than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but still waiting to see on that volume. The team is so explosive, though, he could genuinely score a touchdown any game. So it's always something to look into. Again, definitely a low-end flex start. I wouldn't start him unless you're really desperate. At 38, we got Devontae Booker. Had a rough game last week, but let's be honest, all of the Raiders did. They're taking on the Jets this week, so should be a juicy matchup. Potential for a garbage time touchdown. It does look like Josh Jacobs will play, but if he doesn't, he's going to be an amazing start and one that could definitely end up winning you the week. At 37, we got Devin Singletary taking on the 49ers. The 49ers defense is looking better than it did, but Devin Singletary is still only getting 40% of the snaps. Zack Moss definitely looks to continue in that lead role. He had 11 carries for 82 yards last week, 3 catches for 20 yards on 3 targets. So a productive day, maybe one that's giving you a little bit of false hope. But I do think that if Zack Moss goes down, he's definitely worth holding on to because he could end up being the starter. But at the end of the day, Josh Allen is the king of poaching touchdowns, so it's not something you can rely on. At 36, we got Boston Scott. Only had 2 carries for 7 yards, but he did have 5 catches for 40 yards on 6 targets. In the past 3 weeks, we've seen his snap count go from 18% to 30% to last week 43.7%. Miles Sanders has also had the opposite go on, 77%, 70%, 50%. So it could be Boston Scott has just emerged and they're liking what they see from him. It could be Miles Sanders being a little banged up. I think last week's game was definitely the fact that they needed to try and make explosive plays because they were down to the Seahawks. But it is worth noting the snap count. Boston Scott could see an uptick. I still think Miles Sanders has the juice, but Boston Scott is showing week in and week out that he can make plays. At 35, we got Zack Moss also taking on the 49ers. I think this is the running back you want if you have a Buffalo running back. He's playing 60% of the snaps, or he did last week. He's been roughly in the 55 range the past few weeks. He's been out snapping Devin Singletary. Last week he had 9 carries for 59 yards, 2 catches for 9 yards, and on 2 targets. The past 4 weeks he's had the highest snap count, so I do think this is just a trend headed in the right direction for him personally. I mentioned this with Devin Singletary, though. This guy, Josh Allen, he is poaching touchdowns like his name is Taysom Hill. Can't do shit about it. The dude wants to run. He's a running back playing quarterback who can sling it as well. So there's never going to be the steady goal line work that you could see from other teams. But same thing with Devin Singletary, vice versa. If Devin Singletary goes down, I think Zack Moss could be definitely a running back 2 rest of season. At 34, we got J.K. Dobbins taking on the Cowboys. So I'm recording this on Tuesday night, per usual. And it does look like J.K. Dobbins is going to play tomorrow against the Steelers. He is technically eligible him and Mark Ingram, they can't ride on the bus or something like that, but they can fly down there tomorrow. Some kind of concussion protocol. He didn't actually catch COVID. He was on the list for close contact tracing. And this next upcoming week, he's going to have a really nice matchup against the Cowboys, who just got the wheels beaten off of him by Washington. It's a committee, though, at the end of the day. If you have to pick one, I think this is your guy. At 33, we got Latavius Murray. And let's get a slow clap for Latavius Murray. Unless you're the Kamara owner, then you're probably disliking the video as I'm speaking. But other than that, this guy, it's looking like the 1-2 punch back when Mark Ingram was there. He only played one less snap than Kamara, 19 carries, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'm not expecting to see this every week, but it does look like he has solidified the goal line work at a minimum. I think they're trying to do everything they can to remove the pressure from Taysom Hill. And it looks like Latavius Murray is one of the main things that they're trying to work into. Taysom Hill, though, just like Josh Allen, touchdown poaching king 1A and 1B. You pick who's the worst. But as far as quarterbacks go, maybe Kyler Murray. It's so hard to trust an offense when you know the quarterback's going to steal all the running backs' touchdowns. But this week, they each had 2 touchdowns. Kamara was the one to pay. It's interesting to see how this looks going forward. At 32, we got James White taking on the Chargers. Looks like he's back in his role that Rex Burke had rudely snatched from him. 38% of the snaps, 5 carries, 18 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 1 target, but Cam Newton only threw the ball 18 times, completed 9 passes. So it's not something you're going to see every week. I think this was definitely a blip. I think they just really weren't performing well. I'm surprised they even won, to be honest. But this week against the Chargers, I think it's definitely going to be more of a shootout. I think James White will need at least a couple more catches to stay consistent. I do like him as a flex, maybe a running back 2 if you're hurting for one. I think he's a good fill-in, and he's looking like the James White of old, so it's good news. At 31, we got Chase Edmunds taking on the Rams. Played 45% of snaps, but did not have the monster game that Kenyan Drake did. He's clearly the lead back, Kenyan Drake, that is. But Chase Edmunds still saw 6 carries, 29 yards, 4 catches, 14 yards on 4 targets. He looks explosive as always has the potential to bust off a big play. Kyler was pretty banged up. I think that definitely contributed to why they leaned so heavily in the run game. It just happened to be that Kenyan Drake was doing so well. I think there will be weeks where Chase Edmunds does equally as well. And I think this week against the Rams, they're not going to be able to run as efficiently. So they'll probably be looking to pass themselves back into the game. And that's a perfect Chase Edmunds recipe for a good day. A low flex, maybe a running back 2 if you have to. Nothing crazy, though. At 30, we have Nyheim Hines taking on the Texans. Really had himself a nice receiving game last week with Jonathon Taylor out. He was definitely dominating that backfield. Still had 10 carries for 29 yards, so not that great. But 8 catches for 66 yards on 10 targets. That's what I'm talking about. That's that good. He should be back to his usual passing role this week, though, with Taylor back. So I don't expect 10 targets because he won't see that many snaps, but I do expect him to maybe get a touchdown, probably 6 target range, 7 target range, and then a few carries sprinkled in here and there. I will note that I'm never trusting this backfield. It's not good for your mental health. You got a better chance of trusting black at the casinos. It's just a bad time. The roulette never lands where you want it to, so proceed with caution. At 29, we got Jonathon Taylor taking on the Texans. Yeah, you heard it right. We got the cop out once again. Just put the 2 running backs right next to each other. I think Jonathon Taylor is going to have a bigger week. I don't feel good about either of them. In week 10, he had a monster game, 22 carries, 90 yards, 4 catches, 24 yards on 4 targets. So if he can continue that, he's going to be the guy once again. But we've played this game before with Jonathon Taylor. It's really hard to know if that's actually going to be what his value is or if that was what the game script demanded when they played the Packers that week. He missed last week's game because of high risk close contact, but he did not test positive for COVID, so he is more than likely going to play. I mentioned this earlier, but I really just don't trust it. It's worth the shot, though. If he does continue like he did in week 10, and that was not just a random game, then you've got a solid running back, and you've got the running back that you drafted. At 28, the man, the myth, the legend, Frank Gore, taking on the Raiders. Greg's favorite player is back and slowly climbing our rankings. Just like Hugh Hefner, age is but a number to Frank Gore. His methodical rhythm, his gentle hands landed him a nice flex spot, RB2 spot for most people this week. And I think going forward, it should be the same. Ever since LaMichael Pirine went out with the injury, he's been the guy. They got the oldest duo I've ever seen with Frank Gore and Joe Flacco, and they look older than dirt, but somehow Frank Gore is getting points. Joe Flacco still sucks. Just want to throw that in there. But if Gore's going to see this steady workload every game, I think he's got a chance to do pretty well. The Raiders defense is not known for being great at stopping the run, so he should or could see a touchdown. I love to talk about Frank Gore. I don't want to get too far into it, though. I'll let Greg drop a nice comment, really just going off about how great Frank Gore is, and we'll move on. At 27, we got J.D. McKissic taking on the Steelers, coming off one of his worst games, and it hurt me a lot. Started him in the running back 2 spot. A little bit of a sore topic, but we're going to move on. Still played 41% of the snaps. It was just Antonio Gibson's day. I think game script is everything when it comes down to the Washington backfield. So JD should see a good target share this week against a tough Steelers defense. I think they're going to be down and they're going to have to throw themselves back into the game. And when you have Alex Smith, who can only throw to tight ends, Terry McLaurin, and short yardage passes, then I think JD's your guy. I just really want to see those double digits again. I got to be honest. Hopefully this is the week. At 26, we have Clyde Edwards-Helaire taking on the Broncos. 59% of snaps, 11 carries for 37 yards, 1 catch for 2 yards, 1 target. It's not great. It's not what you're hoping for. It's not the 2 touchdown game he had the week before last. I do think he'll bounce back, though, against the Broncos team because the offense is struggling so bad. I don't see them being able to put up a lot of points against the Chiefs defense. So they'll probably just run the rest of the game out. If Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes are doing anything like they were doing last week, then they'll be up by 50 in the first quarter. At the end of the day, though, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a touchdown-dependent running back, and if he's not getting those goal line work, then he's almost useless because Tyreek Hill can score from 40 yards. Travis Kelce can score from 40 yards. You really need them to get shut down in the red zone and have him see the carry. Hopefully they don't do some bullshit play where Patrick Mahomes throws it between his legs and does a backflip and Travis Kelce catches it with his ass cheeks. But if they're not doing any of that bullshit, then yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire should see some good goal line work. Up next, we have Damien Harris at the 25 spot taking on the Chargers. Last week didn't have the game you would want. Saw 14 carries, though. Not too bad. 47 yards. Still the main ball carrier. Played 60% of the snaps. The coaches said that Sony won't eat into his workload because he's earned it. So that's always good news. You never know with the Patriots. That could have just been them talking him up. But I do think the fact that he's playing all the snaps he's playing, he's shown week in and week out that he can produce. I like him going forward. I think this week against the Chargers, who just let up absurd rushing yardage, I think it's going to be a good time. At 24, we got Melvin Gordon taking on the Chiefs. So let's not even get into last week. I mean, damn, that was when you have to start your practice squad wide receiver. They should probably push the game back. You know what I mean? If we're gonna move the Ravens Steelers game back, let's help out the Broncos. They're already so far down in the dump. Like why would you shovel more onto them? But that's the NFL's priority. I'm not going to worry about it. We'll just move on to Melvin Gordon. Philip Lindsay suffered a knee injury last week. It was minor. He does have a chance to play, but if he's out, even better for Melvin Gordon. Thankfully, the QB fiasco is over, so they should be able to move the ball again and actually produce, other than one completion through the air. I'm hoping Melvin Gordon can get the team back. I think he'll be used in the passing game against the Chiefs because they'll probably be throwing themselves back into the game. So even if he doesn't see all the carries, I like his usage this week. At 23, Todd Gurley of the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Saints. Raheem Morris is hopeful that him and Julio will return this week. But if we're listening to coach speak and taking that for facts, then what are we doing here? It's no guarantee, but it does look like he will return. Brian Hill did not look good. So I don't think we have to worry about a mutiny here. Brian Hill is not going to be the starter. I think it's Todd Gurley. Ito Smith could be in line for more work, though. He looked very good last week. I mean, very good when you're comparing all the rest of Atlanta. But other than that, the goal line carry should still be Todd Gurley's. Hopefully he'll bounce back after a rough week 11. And maybe this week off was helpful for him. Maybe he went and got himself some copper fit. His knees are feeling better. He's going to be able to run like the old Todd Gurley. Dreads blowing in the wind, jumping over people. Probably not, though. At 22, we got Benny Snell taking on Washington. James Conner tested positive for COVID, so he's going to have to sit out at least 10 days before he can return with the team. That means he will most likely miss week 13 against Washington. There's always a chance they'll push the game back. So if he does get the game pushed back, which it looks like the NFL is helping out every team but the Steelers, then James Conner's in play. Other than that, though, Benny Snell, he had time to shine earlier in the season, and he made do. I like Benny Snell. Wow, fuck. This is my third time doing Benny Snell, and I keep calling him Benny Smell. I'm done. We're keeping this, and we're moving on. Fuck this. At 21, we got Giovanni Bernard taking on the Dolphins. Brandon Allen got the start over Ryan Finley, and that could not have been a better choice. Ryan Finley looked like dog shit. Brandon Allen looked like drunk vomit on a really cute girl you're trying to make out with. So also didn't look great, but you pick. He had 8 carries for 32 yards, 2 catches for 17 yards on 3 targets. The game was very close. A lot of that was due to a kickoff return, but I do like Giovanni Bernard's touchdown potential since Joe Mixon is still out on IR. The Dolphins defense is tough, but the Broncos just beat them. That was without Fitzmagic, though, so whole different team we're talking about. But in reality, they are beatable, and maybe, just maybe, Brandon Allen's got the juice. We'll find out. At 20, David Johnson. Feels good to not have Duke Johnson on the list, even though he could potentially play. It does not, I don't know. It's hard to tell if David Johnson's going to play. He had a concussion, and they put him on IR after week 9. So I've had a couple of concussions in my days, and normally you're not out 3 weeks. So I'm not sure why they put him on IR. It could have been something else, and they just wrote that down. But I do think he should return. So if he does, the Colts matchup is terrible, but with the loss of Will Fuller, They're going to need him. I think even if he probably won't see that many carries. I was going to say, even if he does see 10 carries, which I almost guarantee he'll probably only see 10 carries. I do like him in the passing game. He has potential for touchdown, and Deshaun Watson needs targets. At 19, we have Kareem Hunt taking on the Titans. Played 42% of snaps, only had 10 carries for 62 yards, didn't catch any passes, but had 2 targets. This is not the same thing that we were expecting after we saw Nick Chubb return, where they just dominated, dropped 200 yards, and they both feasted. It definitely looks like Nick Chubb is going to be the guy they rely on. Kareem Hunt was all the upside was that he was going to be in the slot. They were going to pass it to him, but Baker Mayfield doesn't seem to be doing that. If there is going to be a week that he can bounce back and do it, though, I do think it's this week against the Titans. That Titans offense is very high scoring. Derrick Henry just runs over anyone and everyone. So I think they're probably going to have to pass back into this game just to even contend with the Titans. So I think Kareem Hunt has some of the best upside that he's going to get. At 18, we have the boy. What's happening here? Ezekiel Elliot taking on the Ravens. It's tough to talk about. 10 carries, 32 yards, 1 catch, 7 yards on 3 targets. I feel terrible just for anybody who drafted him. You probably took him top 3 every other season he's produced, and then all of a sudden this season, ever since Dak went down, it's just been one shit show after another. He had one good game, made you think he could get back on track, and then they just get destroyed by Washington. On the bright side, Andy Dalton looked all right, so maybe that's positive. The Cowboys have this thing where they randomly do well in certain games, so maybe this could be one of the games against the Ravens. Maybe some of the Ravens players will still be out on the COVID list, and maybe Zeke can feast. That was a lot of maybes and ifs. So try and stay hopeful. That's what I'm doing for you. At 17, we have Miles Sanders taking on the Packers. His snaps since returning from injury have gone down every single week. Started off with 77, then he went to 70. Now he's at 50. At the same time, though, Boston Scott's snap count 18, 30, 43. I don't know if that's game script. I don't know if Miles Sanders is still banged up. But at the end of the day, Miles Sanders, he's a good player. So it's kind of head scratching where this is all coming from. He had 6 carries for 15 yards and had 2 catches for 7 yards. So it's very confusing. I feel like it's all Carson Wentz's fault. It's really easy to blame Carson Wentz, but he's so bad. He is trash. He does not look good, and it doesn't look good for Miles Sanders going forward. I hope that they can get the wheels back on the bus this week, but I'm not feeling that great about it. His potential is so high, though. If I would feel wrong putting him any lower, because he could just have a 2-touchdown game. It's the Joe Mixon situation all over again. Hopefully he can just make it happen. At 16, we have Wayne Gallman taking on the Seahawks. This guy's been on fire since Devontae Freeman went out. 24 carries, 94 yards, and a touchdown. 3 catches for -3 yards. Not great, but those are PPR points. You'll take them every day. 5 straight games with a touchdown. Now that Daniel Jones is out, it's hard to tell what it's going to look like if Colt McCoy leading that offense. But I think Wayne Gallman going forward, I like him a lot. I think his upside is huge. I think he has potential for touchdowns every single week. There's no word on Devonta Freeman if he'll be back. But even if he does, I think that Wayne Gallman has secured his role in this offense. And I think going forward, they're going to look for him and him alone. At 15, we have Raheem Mostert taking on the Bills. Coming off a nice game after being reactivated, 16 carries, 43 yards, and a touchdown. Jeff Wilson Jr. saw 12 carries, McKinnon saw 3. So it's just like we thought. He's the main guy back there. He leads that backfield. It does make me feel good that he got a touchdown. Nick Mullins, he wasn't playing his best game, didn't throw for any touchdowns, but they found a way to get the dub. And I think Raheem Mostert taking on the Bills next week should see a similar stat line, but probably more carries. I think his yards per carry will probably boost up as well. At 14, we have Kenyan Drake taking on the Rams. Good for Kenyan Drake owners. I feel bad every single week when we talk Kenyan Drake up and he drops a dud, but this week he's really come through. The past 3 weeks, he's had 9.4 fantasy points, 14, and now 22.8 last week for PPR, that is. I think the uptrend is good. I don't know if 22.8 is going to be a normal thing. I think that had to do with Kyler Murray being a little banged up. But when you have 78 rushing yards on 22 carries and 2 touchdowns, I feel pretty good about that. Still had 3 catches for 15 yards through the air. Outsnapped Chase Edmunds. Chase Edmunds does not look to be stealing his job anytime soon. I think going forward against the Rams, it is a tough matchup, but that offense is explosive enough to get it done. It really just depends on if Kenyan Drake can get it done. At 13, we have Antonio Gibson taking on the Steelers. This guy single-handedly ruined my weekend, but at the end of the day, that's life, baby. That's fantasy football. The fantasy gods were not shining on me, but 20 carries for 115 yards on 3 touchdowns. They were definitely shining on Antonio Gibson. I think going forward, I didn't even mention his 5 catches for 21 yards. I think going forward, though, Antonio Gibson has earned the right to be the guy. He's obviously the leading running back now. JD McKissic was giving him a little fight here these past few weeks, but Antonio he's earned this job and he's going to keep going. The Steelers matchup is definitely tough. I think honestly, I would have him higher if it wasn't for the Steelers matchup. I think the offense isn't that great at the end of the day, but when you're that good at the goal line and you can drop 36 fantasy points, then you're going to be moved up. And I think for the weeks to come, I only see him climbing. At 12, we have DeAndre Swift taking on the Bears. So he was a game time decision last week with a concussion. I do think he'll play this week, especially if they were considering it last week. And it was the Thanksgiving Day game, so he may have even played on Sunday. He has solidified that role in the offense. He's the go-to guy. I think after the week 1 touchdown drop, everybody was a little low on him in the organization, but week in and week out, he's produced. He's shown that he's a good runner, and they are taking on a tough Bears matchup, but that's a divisional game, so everybody plays better against their own division because they got the recipe, they got the secret. They've been studying for years, and hopefully now that Matt Patricia's gone, the team will actually want to play better and play for each other. Moving on to number 11, David Montgomery taking on the Lions. He had 11 carries for 103 rushing yards. Great game. And also 5 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown. One of David Montgomery's better games. He's taking on the Lions this week. I think with Mitch back there, it actually benefits him because it kind of opens up the line a little bit more because Mitch is also a runner, so they can do a little bit more scheming. I don't necessarily know if it's better for the offense in general. I think Nick Foles is probably just as good as Mitch Trubisky and maybe even better at moving the ball down the field. Matt Nagy, when he was asked if Mitch would be the starter, he said, "I don't see why not." So that's some classic Matt Nagy shit. Just not going to tell you anything. But other than that, it looks like Mitchell Trubisky's going to start. I think there's no reason for him not to. Nick Foles wasn't working. Mitchell Trubisky wasn't working either, but might as well switch back and forth and see what wins you some games. At 10, Myles Gaskin taking on the Bengals. Should be returning from IR this week. It is no guarantee, but he was activated but did not get to play. Savon Ahmed is out. Matt Breida did not look that great. I think they need him if they're going to continue on their playoff hunt. The Bengals matchup is a very juicy one. Myles Gaskin was looking fantastic before he got injured. So I think this upcoming week, if he gets the start, it's going to be a great day for him. At number 9, we have Chris Carson, who finally returned last week. He is taking on the Giants. Chris Carson had 8 carries for 41 yards and a touchdown. Also had 2 catches for 18 yards. I think the low volume was definitely due to his injury. I don't see that being the norm for him. He's a great player. He's good out of the backfield and in passing situations, and he's a nasty runner. He's really good at finding the end zone. So I think every week he gets healthier, his stock's going to go up. Chris Carson's the guy there. And against the Giants, who is a tougher matchup than most people would think, I still think he's going to have a great day. At 8, and this hurts to say, we have Alvin Kamara. It is really all Taysom Hill's fault. Taysom Hill is killing his value. He's stealing his red zone attempts. He's not giving him the check downs that Drew Brees was. And now all of a sudden we got Latavius Murray emerging as the second coming of God, looking like Mark Ingram out there when they were splitting carries. So I really don't know what to think. Alvin Kamara is one of the smoothest cats in the league. And the Falcons, we saw it the other, not this past week, but the week before. I think Kamara can make plays. It really just comes down to Taysom Hill. Hopefully Drew Brees can get back healthy soon so Kamara can be that number 1 guy again, because honestly, I hate having him this far down in the list. At number 7, Josh Jacobs, coming off a terrible week, just like the rest of the Raiders. Suffered. I don't even know what suffered means, but he definitely suffered a sprained ankle against the Falcons this week. John Gruden did come out and say he's confident he will play. John Gruden's definitely a hard ass. I don't think he cares if you're hurt. If you're injured, it's one thing, but if you're just hurt, you're going to play. So I think Josh Jacobs is definitely going to play this week. And against the Jets, that is going to be a cake matchup. Should be right on track to return to his true form. And hopefully this week he can just get on the field. At 6, we got Aaron Jones, who lost some carries to Jamal Williams last week. They both had 17 carries, and he did not get the touchdown. Jamal Williams did. Aaron Jones had 17 carries for 90 yards. Jamal Williams had 17 carries for 73. I think this was all game script. When you're beating the Bears' ass like that, you don't need to risk your running back number 1 who's already had injury problems when you're so set to make a playoff push. So I think they're just being cautious. I think Aaron Jones this week against the Eagles will surely bounce back. Not even bounce back, just surely get more workload. As I'm saying this, that's probably not going to happen. They're probably going to do the same thing. But the fact that he got 17 carries for 90 yards means that he could bust off 2 big plays, get 2 touchdowns, and he could have a Derrick Henry type game in the first half. Just drop 30 real quick and be done with it. At number 5, we have Austin Ekeler, the God himself, taking on the Patriots. They were going to ease him back in. That's what they said. And then he played 72% of snaps, had 63% of the running back carries, and had 31% of the team's targets. 16 targets. 16. Absolutely absurd. He had 25 touches, which was a career high for him. I don't know what the hell they were talking about easing him back in, but I'm glad they didn't. He's on my squad. 14 carries for 44 yards and 11 catches for 85 yards. That's a great day as far as fantasy goes. I think each week he's going to continue something similar to this. Maybe not the 11 catches on 16 targets, but I do think he'll be in the 20 plus touch range going forward. At number 4, we have James Robinson taking on the Vikings. The Vikings defense, they're pretty questionable. The Browns defense, also kind of questionable. So I see something similar to last week. 22 carries, 128 rushing yards, and a touchdown. Definitely my rookie of the year. I don't know how you can argue for any other player unless it's Justin Herbert. As far as running backs, easily the rookie of the year. There may be a few wide receivers you can put into the same category, but James Robinson has been elite. He's had 194 attempts this season. The other Jags running backs have combined for 7. 7. That's absurd. He is the workhorse back through and through. He's going to have himself a nice career. He's the boy. He's the man. And they really nailed the draft pick that they didn't even use to get him. The undrafted free agent. Just one of the one things the Jags did right this year. At number 3, Nick Chubb, taking on the Titans. 19 carries, 144 yards, and a touchdown against the Jags last week. That's the Nick Chubb we're looking for. He's a monster. He's going to continue to produce week in and week out. I think the Titans are going to run. It's going to be a Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb face-off, and it's going to be a beautiful thing to watch. At number 2, we have Dalvin Cook. Did get hurt last week, but Adam Schefter reported that he is not expected to miss any time due to his ankle injury, so it's good news there. I just talked about Nick Chubb against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He ran for 144 yards. I think Dalvin Cook will probably do something similar. It's going to be a great week for Dalvin. And at number 1, we have Derrick Henry. What can you say about Derrick Henry? Other than when you score 3 touchdowns and you have 178 yards, you probably helped every fantasy owner out there win their game. Finished the game with 38.5 points. Just a monster game that was only overshadowed by one Tyreek Hill.
Thanks for checking out this video. If you have any issue with where we put any of these players or who we put on this list, go ahead and let us know in the comments. We can handle the heat, and we will not get out of the kitchen.
Bully us if you'd like. We're ready.
We can handle it. We're tough boys, but we are so desperate for approval. Hence the YouTube channel.
Yeah.